In Lesson 10, we're going to look at how to interpret a graph and recognize misleading graphs. What are the characteristics of good graphs and some of the things you want to try to avoid when you put a graph together. Some general characteristics of a good display. First of all, you pick a type of display that will show your data in the way you want it to be shown. Give the graph a title. Number 2, label with units. Either you have to indicate what the numbers mean, and then use an accurate and a consistent scale in your graph. So here's a line graph. It shows changes over time. I think the title got clipped off when I took the screenshot, so let's assume it had a title, which would be one of the characteristics of making it a good graph. So the blue line represents Jack's savings, so we have the key there, Barbara in red. Savings, USD, stands for US dollars. You don't have to put the dollar symbol here under the 500 or 1,000. Notice that these are consistent. 500 goes by 500s, 1,000, 1,500, etc. And January, February, March, April, May. So it has all the things that you need to see to make it basically a pretty good graph. It's simple. It conveys information very clearly. You can see the ups and downs, and you can see who's saving money and how they're saving it. So this is a pretty good graph. And this is a decent pie chart or circle graph. The title, pets, you might want to know a little bit more about whose pets they are, so it's a little sketchy there. But as far as the actual construction of the graph, it's pretty good. It gives you, you can obviously see it's labeled here with the categories are labeled dogs, cats, and they're color coded, so you can see they have the percents clearly shown. So it's really easy to see that. These sections are not so small that you can't interpret them, so this is a pretty good way to use a circle graph. It's a double bar graph. It has a title, Scores on Fractions Tests with and Without Prep. The score axis and the people, the students, labeled students, coded orange and without preparation and green with preparation. And it's pretty easy to interpret the results. It doesn't start at 0, but it doesn't have to, as long as it really should probably have a little broken symbol that would look like this. Right down here in this area, because it doesn't start at 0. So we'd like to see that broken part right there. Then these intervals, as you'd want to have, go by 10s, and it's consistently going by 10, so that's good. The next display is a histogram, and the type of bar graph, you can see that the columns touch each other as they do on a histogram. It has a label here for this axis, number of students, and then their scores. And these intervals are shown as 0 to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60. So as you interpret this, you can see that most people scored between 61 and 80. The highest column, about 40 people did. The only criticism I have about this graph, and again it might have gotten clipped off, is there's no really title up here to show you who are these students. Like, is it high school students over a period of 20 years? We don't know. Who are the people in the population? But other than that, it's a pretty good display. Okay, I found this one on a website called Bad Graphs, and you can see all the criticisms of this graph, the 6 of them. The title seems to indicate that the values are measured workdays missed, but down here it says percent, so what do we know? Is that 4%, 5%, or is that workdays missed? We don't know. The bars don't start at 0, so it starts at 4, and the problem with that on this one is, you see, this looks really small. Like, people that work in accommodation and food service industry, they miss way less days than people in healthcare and social assistance, it appears, right? Compare the little teeny tiny bar to that really long bar up there. But this is like 4.1 and this is 8, it's about half. But this bar is obviously not half the size of this one, so it's distorted the information. So this is a very misleading graph. And it's pointed out in number 3. The labels of the bars are also shaded in a way that gives a misleading length to the bar. The picture of the calendar and the word sick, it just detracts according, this is their opinion, number 4. There's lots of extra symbols in here you really don't need, and they call them ducks. I had looked up what duck stands for. It's an acronym for something about unnecessary symbols. 7.8 appears here, it appears here. You don't need it twice. And the average days lost is 7.8 days. But if you find 7.8 right in this area, it looks like, well, everything's less than 7.8 except for healthcare and social workers. And that's what happened when you started at 4. So again, it's misleading. So bad graph. I know this is a little bit fuzzy, but do you think it's a good display, or if it wasn't fuzzy, or a bad display? Well, you can tell the opinion here. No pie charts. People that criticized this one didn't think it was really appropriate to show this in a pie chart. And why not? Well, look at all the little categories here. You can't tell what's what. There's so many of them. And they're so small in some parts, so it's really hard to interpret. So I'm not sure this is as much of a bad graph as it is a bad choice to show this information with a pie chart. So there's, let's go back to choose the appropriate display, put it on a title, label your axis, and use equal intervals to make a good display.